Friends and colleagues, welcome to the December 26th edition of the Colombia Business News Recap. So first on the list, Hidroituango, the hydroelectric dam that is owned by Empresas Públicas de Medellín, EPM, the city-owned utility conglomerate, is now finally generating electricity. The dam, which once completely finished, once all the turbines are installed, should generate 2.4 gigawatts of electricity, now has one active turbine. It looks like the second turbine may go into operation, but it is right now generating at least 600 megawatts of electricity, 1/8 of its design capacity. But still, the dam needs 6 of the 8 turbines installed. There are 2 installed and 1 operational. The only bidder for the retender that Daniel Quintero, the mayor of Medellin, caused to happen is a consortium made up of 2 Chinese firms and a local company. The original contractor, CCCI, was run off. Quintero, when he ran for mayor, kind of went to war with them. They sued him for defamation and slander. He forced... Basically, when the contract came up to renew and continue construction and to continue the project and install the turbines, because they had fallen out and things got very acrimonious, they declined to bid on it. So Quintero insisted that by opening up the bidding, he'd bring in other companies. Only one company at the end submitted a bid after the EPM they changed the deadline for submitting bids 5 times. They extended it 5 times, and even still, only this consortium submitted a bid after having some of the specifications changed. I spoke 2 years ago to the head of EPM's largest union, and it was interesting because at the time she told me, in the interviews on Finance Colombia, but she told me that that Quintero was opening the door with a plan of bringing in a Chinese contractor. And it was interesting. That's fine if that's what you want to do, but it's interesting that she told me that this was going to happen 2 years ago, and we have the interview from the time. So anyway, there's still that tender that the city, that EPM has until March, I think, to sign, to accept. But it's really complicated, the issue, and now it's clear that Hidroituango is going to be it's going to continue behind schedule. I think $5 billion project that once built will generate about 20% of Colombia's electrical needs in the future. Now, what else is going on? So we probably have all heard about the self-coup in neighboring Peru. Peru shares a southern border with Colombia east of Ecuador. And Pedro Castillo earlier this month tried to disband Congress, which he didn't have the power to do. His own cabinet abandoned him. Nobody went along with it. He figured that he would get rid of Congress and be a dictator or run things himself, and it failed miserably. The prosecutors, Congress, his own cabinet, nobody went along with it, and he ended up being arrested the same day. Interestingly, well, not surprisingly, I suppose, Gustavo Petro, the president of Colombia, along with Mexico's AMLO, Manuel López Obrador, have both come out strongly in defense and support of Pedro Castillo and his self-coup. Castillo was democratically elected, but then so was Manuel Ortega in Nicaragua. And what happens is that these strongmen get into power and then they won't leave. So they say, well, I was elected once a long time ago. But anyway, so Peru has lodged a formal complaint with Colombia's Ministry of Foreign Relations, saying that, accusing Petro of meddling in Peru's internal justice processes in support of his friend Castillo. And so we have yet to see how that is going to play out. It is unlikely at this point, in my own prediction, that Peru and Colombia's bilateral relations will be damaged in the long term, though short term it has raised a degree of tension that has been uncommon in recent years between the two countries. Petro has established an increase in minimum wage of 16% for 2023. Colombia, the executive branch, the government comes out and after the way it's supposed to work, consultation with factors, economists, the central bank, business sectors, unions and such, and looking at the inflation numbers over the past year, resets the minimum wage and determines what the minimum wage is going to be in the coming year. And generally what happens is the government sets that minimum wage, but a lot of things in Colombia are indexed to the minimum wage. For example, if you get a parking ticket or some kind of traffic ticket, it may be set as like 1/2 the monthly minimum wage or something like that. Or if you're a public figure and you get a fine for corruption by prosecutors or like a judge sentences you, they'll say you have to pay 1,000 monthly minimum wages in restitution or something like that. So the minimum wage has gone up 16% for 2023, up to 1,160,000 pesos per month. That's about, and I'm going mentally, forgive me if it's going to be off a little bit, about $260 or so per month. There's a transportation subsidy that's paid to workers who earn less than 2 minimum wages per month. So if you earn less than 2 million pesos per month, then you get a transportation subsidy that's supposed to help you with the cost of getting to and from work. That's gone up by 20% to 140,000 pesos per month. So what Petro and his administration have also said is that they want to de-index a lot of pricing to the minimum wage, because what normally happens is the minimum wage goes up by a certain amount, like in this case 16%, and then all these other different things will index their prices by the same amount. So just because you're earning 16% more per month, everything that you're out there paying for, your rent and all these other different things, are also going up by 16%. So what happens is in real spending and real purchasing power, you're not making any more money because you're getting 16% more, but everybody else has raised their prices up 16% more. It's one of the interesting peculiarities to the way that the economy in Colombia functions. But the government has said that they want to try to de-index things. There's going to be some limitations to what they can do unless they start getting into price controls and things like that, right? Because you have, to a large degree, a market economy in Colombia. If you're a grocery store, you know your prices are whatever your prices are, and this brand of sugar costs more than that brand of sugar, and this rice costs more than that rice. But so it's going to be interesting. The government can certainly de-index certain things that the government charges, but it's going to be interesting to see how this plays out. But for now, we know what the minimum wage is going to be. Now, after staying with the executive branch, staying with the Petro administration, after making opposition to new combat jets a platform of his election campaign, President Petro, less than a year into his administration, has begun negotiations for, I think, 16 French Dassault Rafale fighter jets to replace the 1970s era Kafir. I don't know how to pronounce it. It's the Israeli KFIR jet fighters that I think came into service around 1974 in Israel when they first came into service. I think that Colombia has been flying them for the past 32 years or so. Petro justifies the purchase, saying that the Kafirs are obsolete and at the end of their service life, which is true. They're old planes. Colombia is about the only government that remains flying them. I think Ecuador may fly them. A couple other places may fly them. But this is true, but it was also true when he was running for president. So for him to go, we're not going to buy any, read my lips, no new jets, to now we're going to have new fighter jets, that change of stance is very curious, and it seems to have politics as an ingredient. Still, while no contracts have been signed yet, the Rafales were chosen by the Petro administration over Saab Gripens from Sweden and also over General Dynamics F-16s from the United States. The United States has been lobbying for well into the past administration, hard for the Colombian government to consider the F-16s. Of course, that the U.S. and Colombia have a very tight defense relationship. According to Petro's defense minister, Ivan Velázquez, Colombia won't start paying for the new aircraft for 5 years, well into Petro won't be the president in 5 years. It'll be another administration. So no contracts have been signed. It's not a done deal, but the administration has come out saying verbally that it's going to go with the Rafales and begin negotiations. A lot of things can derail that. A lot of things can happen between now and pilots flying new planes. But that's where things seem headed at this point. In good news for Colombian agriculture, Colombia has begun to export mangoes to the United States. This is something the country, Petro has run saying that he wants to prioritize agriculture. These negotiations and the process to get mangoes approved for export began several years ago, though. The U.S. has a free trade agreement with Colombia, but the fruit and the export supply chain has to go through an approval process with the U.S. agricultural, I forget the name of the organization, but the phytosanitary export controls that look to make sure that no foreign pests can come into the country with the fruit. This is why when you fly into the U.S., they're so strict about, you see the dogs at the airport and you think they're looking for drugs, but usually those are dogs that are trained to look for fruit and agricultural products, because you can get agricultural pests that get into the United States. There's a fly that's devastating crops in Florida right now that has come from abroad. It came in with the fruit. And so they're very strict about that. So the good news is that Colombian mangoes have been approved for export. The first shipment's on its way. It should arrive. We're at the 26th today as of recording this, actually tomorrow in Savannah, Georgia. So congratulations. That's really good news. And hopefully Colombian agriculture, which Colombia has so much agricultural potential that it's not taken advantage of, that it's not exploiting. Colombia is not the export power that it could be. Currently, the main agricultural exporters of mangoes to the United States are Mexico and Peru. The United States does produce some mangoes domestically, but Peru and Mexico are the number one and number two exporters as of to date. We also know that Colombia is now exporting avocados, and that's doing very well around the world. There's several different countries that Colombia is exporting avocados to. They have beef exports. So hopefully this is a new channel of agricultural opportunity for Colombia. Now, in bad news on the agricultural sector, Colombia has lost in WTO arbitration to the EU in the potato wars. I call them the potato wars. I'm sure other people call them that too. But basically, a few years ago, Colombia slapped an import tariff on French fries, basically frozen potato products coming from the EU, mainly the Netherlands, Germany, and Belgium. And they said that the countries were dumping, that the prices were coming in too low, artificially low, and so Colombia put tariffs on those potatoes. It's a small export sector, something like 23 or 26 million, under $30 million a year in exports, but the frozen processed potatoes were coming in at a price that the Colombian government and I would imagine potato processors did not like. So the government put a tariff on there. That tariff went against, according to this arbitration panel, and according to a previous ruling earlier this year, that said that no, the prices were fair and that Colombia was not justified in placing this import duty on these potatoes. And I think that part of the problem is that Colombia, and we're talking about agriculture here, Colombian agriculture, the supply chain is not very well developed. There's so much potential, as I just got finished saying. There's a lot of land that is suitable for all kind of different agricultures. You can grow fruit all year round. Unlike in a lot of places, you can grow multiple crops per year. But what happens is that just because you can, let's suppose you're a potato farmer, then you can grow all these potatoes, but it's very difficult and expensive to get the potatoes to the market. And it's because the roads are low capacity. It's because a lot of times the roads are unreliable. There can be landslides and things like that. It's very expensive to move things, let's say, to the coast, to the ports to be able to export them. There, a lot of times, is not the sophistication in the supply chain to maybe process things properly to prepare them for export. And then if you sign contracts with big exporters, like in the U.S., for example, let's suppose you're going to export, I don't know, ginger to Walmart in the U.S., then they expect to have that. They expect you to comply with that and to have the quantities of ginger there when you say you're going to have them, and not let that be intermittent. And there are a lot of things in Colombian agriculture that have yet to be developed. Hopefully that continues to be the case, but it does not surprise me, as I was saying, to see that the prices of domestic potatoes are not necessarily competitive with the prices of imported potatoes. And it's ironic because the Andes is the home of the potato. The potatoes are from the Andes. That's the region here, the highland region in Colombia, Ecuador, Peru. And being the home of the potato, Colombia has something like 60, that I'm aware of, 60 different potato varieties that are grown in Colombia. I love going to some of the markets, and you can see potatoes that you've never seen outside of the country. All these kinds of potatoes that are just specific to one little region. All kind of different colors, potatoes that don't even look like potatoes. I've been in the market and I said, what's that? And it's some kind of exotic potato. I would love to see people being able to maybe exploit that, and to have all these different exotic potatoes that are not commodities that you could charge premium prices for because of these different exotic products. I think that sometimes those of us that are hot pepper fanatics, for example, we know that there are hundreds of different pepper cultivars, and we'll pay top dollar to get this kind of pepper, that kind of pepper. You see the same with wine varieties and things like that. But anyway, there's a lot of potential there, and so hopefully Colombia can innovate rather than litigate when it comes to potatoes and potatoes imports and exports. Now, last week there was an explosion at Bogotá's El Dorado International Airport. Glad to report it had nothing to do with any kind of terrorism or crime or anything like that. It was an accident in the transformer substation where the electricity comes in to feed the airport. 3 electrical workers were injured. I haven't been able to find out any more information on their condition. It caused electrical outages in the airport for about an hour that caused some flight disruption, and also like the things like the baggage carousels stopped working, and elevators and escalators and things like that. But they got that under control. But I want to reassure people that that was an accident, electrical accident, and it was not related to any kind of terrorism or crime. Lastly, in the you can't make this stuff up department, have to come to Medellín now. The mayor, Daniel Quintero, wants to give out 361 pigs to, according to him, to make 200,000 children and adults in Medellín happy. Now, they're already unhappy with him. His popularity rating, he has I think a 44% positive rating and a 56% negative approval rating, which is kind of unprecedented, and that's according to Invamer, which is an independent polling organization here in Colombia. If you do the math, though, with this guy, he's supposed to be a smart guy and had an IT company and all that stuff like that. But if you do the math, each pig would have to feed 554 people. If now maybe some people are messiahs or like to see themselves as messiahs, and some people can hand out fish and bread. It's Christmas time. Other people are going to hand out pigs. But remember, Quintero, and we talked about this earlier, has been using the city of Medellín to run an anti-meat campaign, putting up these city billboards saying, be conscious, and it takes all this water to feed a cow. And so the same anti-meat mayor, his wife wants everybody to know, she makes it very public that she's a vegetarian. It kind of goes to the old joke. How do you know somebody's a vegetarian? Don't worry, they'll tell you. Forgive me. But his wife, tweeted out that she would rather have frijoladas, which is a bean soup, kind of like a bean stew. But anyway, so the mayor goes from running municipal anti-beef campaigns to wanting to hand out pigs. Is it to shore up his, I won't say sagging because it's been low for a long time, since at least 2021 popularity? Who knows? But now the mayor, the anti-beef mayor, Mayor McMeat, as I put in an article earlier, wants to hand out several hundred pigs to feed 200,000 children and adults in Medellin. Maybe they'll vote for his designated candidates that he's picking to run next year, since in Colombia you don't have re-election. So if you're the mayor, you can't run for re-election. If you're the president, you can't run for re-election. But anyway, will his pork project be enough to turn the tide of negative sentiment towards him? We'll see. So everyone, be kind, be smart, but remember to be kind. Thank you. Remember to support our sponsors and subscribe to Finance Colombia, financecolombia.com. Remember, Colombia is with an O, not a U. And I appreciate all of you. Merry Christmas and Happy New Year.
At the Viva Foundation, we are convinced that we all aboard the same flight, united in our differences. We believe in education as the route to closing the current poverty gap and towards its eventual extinction. We believe that inclusion is the route that provides opportunities for all, regardless of social, economic, or cultural differences. We believe in caring for the biodiversity as the route towards protecting the ecosystems that are the basis of life on this planet. Flying differently make us feel alive. Landing with opportunities make us the Viva Foundation, the first and only airline foundation in Colombia, committed to helping those who wish to reach higher.